Number 10. Peter Parker of Earth 92100. You'd think the addition of extra arms for a Spider-Man would be an added benefit. When it happened to Peter in the 616 universe, he panicked and got rid of it with the DNA of Morbius. Understandably. But on Earth 92100, Morbius did not live long enough to help Peter, being eaten by sharks of all things. And since no one else could, Peter kinda had to just deal with it. Turns out, during a fight with Doc Ock, after Peter embraced his extra appendages, they actually give him a distinct advantage. They actually grant him much more strength and agility, and using them, he is even able to save Gwen Stacy from her demise. Unfortunately, they don't really protect him from the Inheritors. Spider Limbs here sacrifices himself to save Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 2 Number 6 in 2014. Number 9. Spider Assassin. Do you know how effective Spider-Man would actually be if he was a little less moral but still a crime fighter? Pretty effective. And while we've seen a few different examples of this, I chose to pull from What If? Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, where we are introduced to Spider Assassin. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led this Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York to protect his family. He joined up with Wolverine, and likely because of this friendship, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife. He's also almost always serious, not resorting to quips and jokes to cope with situations anymore, which is reflected in his costume, which is a much darker look, especially with those black eyes. I really dig it. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include firearms. He is an effective addition to the Spider Army when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man indeed. Number 8. Spider-Man. Alright, yeah. Nope, not a fan of this one. You ever seen those videos of people finding spider nests where it's literally a swarm of spiders? Yeah, okay, imagine that, but they're superpowered and come together to take on a human form. Now you've got the terrifying Spider-Man, which, side note, that's a great name. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to a colony of radioactively powered spiders who consumed a high school boy by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter, the spiders gained a sort of hive mind in Peter's image and began fighting crime in Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or, if they're hungry for power, devour them whole. And it's incredibly hard to actually de-life this guy, as even a single spider being alive means technically Spider-Man is also still alive and can multiply to rebuild itself. Number 7. Spider UK. The first Spider-Man mashed with another Marvel hero. These mashups always make for powerful characters. Basically, Spider UK is William Braddock, hailing from Earth 833. If you haven't gathered from the Braddock namesake, Spider UK is what would happen if Spider-Man was Captain Britain. As such, he is part of the Captain Britain Corps, being introduced in the Edge of Spider-Verse Volume 1. He is also part of the Spider Army put together to take on the Inheritors, and a pretty important part of it, he was not only an amazing leader but also had a very useful dimension hopping ability. Unfortunately, this Spider-Man didn't actually have a spider sense, which is probably what allowed him to be de-lifed by an attack from behind in Spider-Geddon number 1. Number 6. Spider-Man 2099. Probably one of the most loved characters on this list. The Spider-Man of Earth 928 Miguel O'Hara, or as he's better known, Spider-Man of the dystopian future of 2099. This version of Spider-Man has many similar abilities to 616 Peter Parker, but some that are not so similar. He has super speed, which is actually capable of somehow creating a decoy. His spider sense allows him to telepathically communicate with others. He has accelerated vision, he has retractable talons, and also has fangs that he can use to paralyze others. And he has the famously disgusting organic spider silk spinnerets on his wrists. He first appeared as a preview in Amazing Spider-Man number 365 in June of 1992, and in his own series in Spider-Man 2099 number 1 in September 1992, and he is a titanically awesome character. Number 5. The Spider of Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the Spider. But specifically, I'm talking about the one that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote who comes from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, which is proven by the fact that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes he has committed. To make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-conquering Weapons X team featured in it, being a sometimes leader of that team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he was nonetheless sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. Number 4. Poison. From one symbiote to another. Every time that pesky Venom symbiote would try to merge with Peter Parker, he would only get halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Peter Parker is defeated by Venom, who completely bonds with him? In the What If Spider-Man the Other story, after Peter is defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God. But instead of allowing this, he refuses and is ejected from his cocoon, non-resurrected. Cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses what is happening and completely ditches his current host. He intercepts Peter's body and after months of struggling, fully bonds to Peter. Now, Peter has all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, but he actually has stingers that are capable of piercing the skin of Luke Cage, which is pretty insane. Number 3. Spider-Hulk. The second Spider amalgam here. Spider-Man of the Immortal Hulk with Great Powers story is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transferred the Gamma power to him. So it's Spider-Man's relative spider powers mixed with an unstoppable green monstrosity with the temperament of a toddler. It's actually really cool. Eventually, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius. It's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and had more time to hone his abilities and temper tantrums. Number 2. Ghost Spider. The last Spider-Man mashed up with other heroes, but nonetheless possibly one of the most powerful potential mashups. Also, in my opinion, the coolest looking one. Also, it appears that Uncle Ben leaving this plane of existence is actually a really good thing. See, on Earth 11638, Ben never loses his life to a mugger, and he helps train Peter with his powers and helping him form Parker Industries. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to this reality where he absorbs their powers to increase his own. That kinda took a dark turn, didn't it? But when he tried to do this to the apparently most powerful Spider-Man from Earth 616, he is de-lifed and his soul is sent to Hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. If you know anything about Ghost Rider, you know how actually insanely powerful he is, even going toe-to-toe with Galactus at one point. So yeah, this Spider-Man / Ghost Rider guy is potentially extremely powerful. Number 1. Cosmic Spider-Man. There was a point in time when Peter Parker of Earth 616 absorbed the Enigma Force and became the most powerful version of Spider-Man we have ever seen, even capable of punching the Hulk into orbit. In the mainline continuity, he doesn't have it for very long, but on Earth 13, he kept the powers and became the hero Captain Universe. So, this Peter Parker has all the usual Spider-Man powers, but also now has cosmic awareness where he can sense things on a subatomic level and from crazy distances. He has energy manipulation, giving him energy blast and flight. He also used his abilities to manipulate matter, making his webs as strong as adamantium, or even changing their shape altogether. His universe became a safe haven for all the Spider-Men when the Inheritors were hunting them, because Captain Universe could defeat them, and his cosmic powers are gone when he leaves that dimension. Unfortunately, he is consumed by Solus, who used the life force basis of his powers against him in Amazing Spider-Man number 11 in 2014. He's still cool though.
At number 10 is Feral Wolverine. This version of the hero is not given added power by any upgrades or magical augmentation, but by his own sheer will to cause harm. What happens is that Wolverine's adamantium is ripped out by Magneto through the pores of his skin, which is, of course, very painful and traumatic. So he gets extremely angry and loses all control as he's thrown into a blind rage to get revenge on Magneto. But aside from Wolverine's pain-driven fury, Magneto actually activates a new mutation that he didn't know was being held back by the adamantium in Wolverine. And this mutation basically turns him into an animalistic version of himself that is closer to an untamed beast than his usual strategic and tactically aware self. The only downside of this version of Wolverine is that he's so unhinged that he's not able to control any strategic approach to battle. At number 9 is Hellverine. When the Red Right Hand sets their sights on Wolverine, acting on their strange grudge against him specifically, they banish Logan's soul and replace it with that of a demon. So, a demonic version of Wolverine is created and makes the superhero even more powerful, sending him into a demonic rage, killing many of Logan's friends in one bloody frenzy. It takes a lot of effort for the X-Men to finally subdue Hellverine, requiring the whole team alongside Jean Grey as well as Logan's own soul to battle the demon out of Wolverine's body for good. This version of Wolverine shows how strong it is in a very short time, leaving Logan's friends and us readers alike hoping that the Red Right Hand will finally just leave Logan alone. At number 8 is Laura Kinney. Laura Kinney is the result of a top secret program that makes an effort to create another Wolverine. But when they can't find a subject to survive the process of bonding the adamantium to their bones, they decide to just clone Logan himself. But during this process, the Y chromosome is damaged and they instead create a female clone that they call X-23. She only has the 2 claws on either hand, but that typically isn't a hindrance for her since she does get empowered by the Enigma Force a number of times. And if you're not already aware, the Enigma Force is what gives Captain Universe his power. So Laura is really not to be messed with. She's also just a great fighter on her own, and she eventually escapes the lab and becomes a very successful hero by her own right. At number 7 is Lord of Vampires Wolverine. In What If number 24, Wolverine is bitten by Lord Dracula, which turns him into a vampire. And after some biting and killing as a blood-sucking ghoul, Wolverine decides he has to kill Lord Dracula and become the Lord of the Vampires himself. Then Wolverine goes and kills most of the X-Men, turning a few of them into vampires as well, and then controlling them and others with hypnosis. With his vampire army, he goes forth to take on all of New York City and then eventually the world. It's a fun, quick issue that explores an interesting question in a what-if context, but if you really take the character seriously and consider his powers, Lord of Vampires Wolverine is a very powerful variant. Wolverine is already an extremely powerful superhero, but with the ability to turn others into mindless vampires and then control them with mind powers, he becomes nearly unstoppable. At number 6, we have Zombie Wolverine. This variant is, on its own, maybe not the most powerful out of them all, considering he's made up of decaying flesh. But due to circumstance, he actually ends up being a real issue for his friends and enemies alike. During a fight against the Silver Surfer, this version of Wolverine loses his right arm and actually has it replaced by a cybernetic one. Not only that, but Zombie Wolverine also gains cosmic powers after killing and then devouring the corpse of the Silver Surfer. So aside from an insatiable hunger as a driving force for this variant, he's also got the whole cosmic power thing on his side, as well as a nifty cybernetic arm. Beware of Zombie Wolverine, he means business. At number 5, we have Darkclaw. This is a fun one, but it's also arguably a very underestimated Wolverine variant, all things considered. For those of you who don't know Darkclaw, he's basically a combination between Wolverine and Batman. The Amalgam comics showed different heroes from the Marvel Universe merging with those of the DC Universe, and the result of Wolverine and Batman coming together is a pretty powerful new hero. There's not much more to report than the obvious, which is just that Wolverine and Batman's abilities are combined. But if you really think about it, there's only power gain for Wolverine in this amalgamation. With all the power that Wolverine already has, met with the innovative genius mind of Bruce Wayne, the possibilities for this variant are basically endless. At number 4, we have General James Howlett from Earth 12025. Appearing mostly in Volume 2 of Extreme X-Men, this highly decorated hero is known to be the most powerful in this reality. This version of Wolverine's bones are actually coated in adamantine, which is a mystical metal that comes from the ancient Greek gods of Olympus. The metal keeps him immune from telepathy, and it's also known to be more powerful than adamantium. Adamantine, adamantium. They're different. Adamantium, of course, being the one that the original Wolverine relies on. The adamantine is so strong that it even keeps Wolverine safe from attacks from Thor's hammer. Plus, this guy has some pretty cool titles attached to his name and is an explorer working for the government of Canada. So he just seems like a cool dude on top of everything else. Did I say dude? I meant god. He's basically a god. At number 3 we have Weapon H. So this variant is the result of what happens when you mix together Wolverine and the Hulk into one guy. And what you get is a superpowered Hulk with an adamantium skeleton and of course the retractable claws. But he still has the ability to switch back to his human form on command despite his frame being coated in the metal. The only downside for this variant that I could think of is the same thing that gives the Hulk a disadvantage. His rage can sometimes be too much for him to handle, keeping him from making sound tactical decisions at times. But regardless, the sheer power that this variant holds is enough, as Dr. Alba theorizes, to kill every living thing on Earth. This is a relatively new character, so I'm interested to see where he goes. I guess we'll all see. At number 2 we have Weapon Omega. Aside from just looking pretty cool, Weapon Omega is undoubtedly one of the most powerful variants of Wolverine in any reality. This guy has all the powers of Wolverine with the added abilities of Apocalypse. So yes, he's basically immortal and can teleport, and also use mind control, shift in size on command, and fly. Not to mention the huge blaster that's replaced one of his claw arms, and the crazy armor that he's got equipped at all times as well. Also remember, he's still got his healing abilities, even if someone did get close enough to do any damage on this guy, which I doubt is a very easy feat to accomplish, and sort of pointless considering he never dies. Weapon Omega eventually takes over for Apocalypse as leader of the Horsemen, solidifying his position as one of the most powerful variants of Wolverine in his political influence as well. Finally, at number 1, I'm putting Phoenix Force Wolverine, because there's really no comparing Phoenix Force to any other entity in terms of power, at least as far as Wolverine variants go. When possessed by Phoenix Force, Wolverine has the ability to manipulate matter at will, as well as warping reality and the fabric of the multiverse. Not to mention, if he wanted to, he could do what Dark Phoenix does and gain more power by consuming the energy of stars throughout the cosmos, if he so chooses. It's almost like his adamantium claws don't really add any extra gusta to his power set at this point, because instead of taking a stab at someone, he could just, you know, think about them being a pile of ashes and it would happen. He's such a powerful variant that he eventually reigns over the cosmos in a future alternate reality, something that old King Thor observes for himself. So yeah, Phoenix Force Wolverine at number 1.
Number 10, Throg. Starting the list off light. He might be small, but he's still pretty mighty. Throg wasn't always a frog. In fact, at one point he was a human named Simon Walterson. He ended up getting help from a witch, but after being unable to pay her, found himself transformed into a frog. Don't you hate when that happens? He befriended Thor back when he was also transformed into a frog by his brother Loki. The two teamed up to help a frog king defend against an army of rats. Simon would go on to become his own version of Frog Thor after a piece of Mjolnir was broken off. This tiny piece was wielded by Simon, who decided to become his own version of the hero while in his frog form. As a frog, he goes by the name Puddle Gulp as well. Puddle Gulp. So if you ever see Puddle Gulp or Simon, that's Throg. Hey. Number 9, Thunderstrike. While Eric Masterson isn't more powerful than 616 Thor, he was still pretty powerful in regards to general power. He was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, and for a time was merged with Thor, in essence becoming that hero. However, he's probably better known for his time as Thunderstrike, when he wielded an Uru-crafted mace. He was fairly short-lived as a character, but whether he was Thor or Thunderstrike, he had powers similar to other Asgardians while in his transformed state. He was super strong, durable, tough, quick, and had a healing factor. In addition to that, with his Thunderstrike mace, he was also capable of teleportation, possibly on a multiversal level, which I think is pretty powerful. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving our channel, be sure to show some love for us by heading on over to Facebook and giving us a follow over there. Number 8, War Thor. War Thor is the name that Volstagg took when he became Thor. This all went down during the time that Jane Foster was Thor, and the usual 616 Thor was simply known by the name of Odinson. Volstagg became War Thor due to him seizing the Mjolnir of an alternate reality, which was unclaimed. This version of the hammer, however, seemed to have some kind of effect on his mind, as it made him, kind of violent and severe in comparison to how Thor would usually act. Probably hence his name War Thor. After Light Elf refugees were attacked by fire demons from from Muspelheim, he ended up going to Muspelheim itself, actively taking on the whole realm in battle and threatening to wipe out all life there with a massive flood. Jane Foster as Thor was forced to fight against War Thor and eventually managed to ascertain that he was Volstagg, using her friendship with him to calm him down. Number 7. MCU Thor. Thor in the MCU is pretty powerful, although he still seems to be on a journey towards becoming the most powerful he can ever be within this universe. Recently, he grew quite a bit when it came to his power levels, as he was forced to find a new way to harness his power when separated from Mjolnir, which was destroyed by his sister Hela. Hela destroys Mjolnir at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, forcing Thor to channel the power within himself and earning him the nickname of Sparkle Fingers from the Grandmaster. Since then, Thor lost an eye but managed to protect his people against Hela and the inevitable destruction of Asgard via Ragnarok, using this prophesied end to basically defeat his sister. So although Asgard is destroyed, it lives on in Asgardians. Yay! Thor was unfortunately no match for Thanos in space, although he did actually almost defeat Thanos in Infinity War single-handedly, although I guess in the end he didn't. However, he did go on to find a home for his people under the leadership of Valkyrie on Earth, creating sort of a new Asgard, if you will. We don't know where he's off to next, but it is possible we could see him take up the mantle of leader from Valkyrie, finally accepting his own fate as the next Allfather and inevitably taking Odin's place. That is after he goes on some adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm sure. The Asgardians of the Galaxy? Number 6. Ultimate Thor. Ultimate Thor was an interesting version of the character. He hails from the reality of Earth 1610, and initially we were led to believe that this alternate wasn't actually even Thor, but instead was just a guy who kinda like thought he was Thor and was possibly suffering from delusions, who was named Thorleif Gorman. He had a suit which helped him to fight against his enemies. Over time, it would be revealed that Thorleif Gorman was indeed the latest incarnation of Thor Odinson, as memories came flooding back to him. This version of Thor wasn't as reliant on Mjolnir as some other versions of Thor are, which makes him in some ways more powerful. Also, that suit. Number 5. Jane Foster. Simply known as Thor, and for a time known in terms of her series as Mighty Thor. While we know this version of the character was actually Jane Foster, at first in the comics it actually was a mystery as to who the woman behind the hammer was. Jane Foster became Thor after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy, with the hammer actually calling out to her. This was also at a time that Jane was sick with cancer, so she had to be strong in many different ways. And it was exceedingly impressive that she decided to remain as Thor, considering the revelation that each time she transformed into the hero, her body was actually cleared of all toxins, including her chemotherapy treatments. Meaning that every time Jane became that hero, she in essence went back to square one with her treatment, making her sicker and sicker over time. Jane even chose to continue being Thor when her life was at stake, and she did end up dying, sacrificing herself to protect the world against Mangog. Fortunately, she would be resurrected by Odin afterward and become known as the hero Valkyrie, which is also like a really big moment for Jane Foster, since Odin, up to that point, never really liked Jane. He was always giving her a hard time. Number 4. Herald of Thunder. This version of Thor folks will be most familiar with, probably from the game Fortnite, but he's actually inspired by Donny Cates' current run on Thor, who exists in main continuity. So even if you're like, Herald of Thunder, that's a Fortnite thing. It's actually also a comics thing. Just like in the comics, Thor is convinced by Galactus to join up with him, as a threat greater than Galactus is apparently on its way, known as the Black Winter. The Black Winter is literally a cosmic sort of, well, winter storm that in essence destroys everything it touches with its snowfall. So, like snow, but if it was like a whiteout for existence instead of just, you know, small frozen bits of water. Much worse than snow. In the game Fortnite, Thor agrees to join Galactus in his fight against Black Winter and becomes his Herald of Thunder, becoming imbued with the power cosmic. Number 3. Rune King Thor. Rune King Thor, although often referred to as an alternate version of the character, is actually from the main continuity. He's more like a very distinct period in time in Thor's life, which ends up in essence getting somewhat reset. In other words, he's kind of main continuity, kind of alternate continuity. What makes him so powerful? Well, this is a version of Thor who comes to be because he's facing Ragnarok and looking for a way to stop it. He ends up gaining the power of the Odin Force and rune magic as well. He gains the Odin Force after Odin dies. Again, Odin has died a lot. Then there is a whole tangential reality that ends up being created where this Thor rules Earth, but I guess technically that's also like now an alternate future version of this version of Rune King Thor. So yeah. Oh boy. Anyways, this Rune King Thor would not be able to avoid Ragnarok in the end and would end up being reset as a result of all of the death that was part of that whole colossal event, along with the other gods and goddesses of Asgard. So that's why Thor isn't quite like Rune King Thor right now in the main continuity, despite this version being a part of the main continuity. Because yeah, he like lost both his eyes. So, lost both his eyes, and yet Thor, I think, is back to having both his eyes. He lost both his eyes, then he had his eyes, then he lost an eye. Does he have both of his eyes back now? I don't know. I can't keep track of how many eyes Thor has. Changes all the time. Number 2, All-Father Thor. While many people still say that Rune King Thor is one of the most powerful versions, and he definitely is, I think the real power lies in a potential alternate future version of Thor known as Old King Thor or All-Father Thor, or simply just as King Thor. Any of these names is acceptable and correct. So if you've heard someone say one and you're like, wait, which one is it? It's all, there's like literally 15 to 20 names actually this character goes by, so they're all right. This version of Thor was once believed to be the true future of Thor, but has since been relegated to kind of an alternate future, with him hailing from the possible future of Earth 14412. Although this Thor has alluded to the fact that if 616 Thor was to die, it would actually affect him, so not sure how connected they are still. In this reality, Thor would not only defeat Gorr the God Butcher, Galactus, a souped up version of his brother Loki, a souped up version of Doctor Doom, and an even more powerful returning Gorr the God Butcher, but he also at one point wielded the Phoenix Force. This all went down after All-Father Thor faced off against Old Man Phoenix, his friend Logan, who had become the host of that force. While Thor lost that fight, the two ended up teaming up together to save Earth from a version of Doom who was super power boosted by various artifacts and powers that he'd been collecting. In the end, Phoenix sacrificed himself to pass on the power of the Force to Thor so that he might stand a chance in defeating Doom, which he ultimately did. Number 1, Herald of None. Herald of None is technically the Thor we have in main continuity currently. This is a period in Thor's life where he basically took all of Galactus's power in order to defeat Black Winter, going from his herald to kind of like renouncing Galactus and ultimately defeating him so that he might destroy the Black Winter, which threatened the existence of everything in the multiverse and the multiverse itself. Doing this allowed Thor to be successful in taking out Black Winter, reducing it to a mere snowflake, one single snowflake. This snowflake also allowed Thor a glimpse into a potential future when it melted on his hand, where he saw Thanos had returned, leading perhaps an army of undead Marvel heroes who were under his influence as he wielded an Infinity Stone encrusted version of Mjolnir. I don't know if we know yet about this future, when it's coming to pass, but I love when comics are like, look at this future, this could happen. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. Give it to me, give me this future.
Number 10, Lord Iron. I will never turn up the chance to talk about Marvel 1602, otherwise known as Earth 311. This Earth takes a bunch of the Marvel characters we love and plops them in the Elizabethan era. And yes, that includes Iron Man. Going by the name Anthony Stark and Lord Iron, his armor is powered by quote-unquote lightning bottles, and was created when Anthony was captured in the Holy Land during the English-Spanish Wars, and treated rather harshly by the Hulk, resulting in the requirement of the suit to survive. Anthony is sent on a mission to hunt down Banner in the New World with his technologically advanced suit. Now look, this suit in comparison to other versions of Iron Man, it's not the most advanced and powerful suit, but when looked at with the scope of the technology at the time, it's centuries ahead of its time, being nearly on par with base Iron Man armors, only it has a super sweet lightning sword. Like, damn bro, it's nice.
Number 9, Original Tony. Technically I'm talking about a version of 616 Tony here, but this isn't even really like the 616 Tony. Not the one we have now anyways, although at one point this was the 616 Tony. This version of Tony ended up getting amalgamated with his younger self to give us the version that we have now, because this version ended up fighting his younger self. Yep. It all happened as part of the Crossing event. Ah yes, the Crossing event. What a marvelous time. During that event, it was revealed that Tony was actually a sleeper agent for Immortus, aka an alternate name and persona of Kang the Conqueror's. He is activated and ends up becoming somewhat unstoppable when it comes to the Avengers' power to defeat him, and Kang. Instead, they enlist the help of a younger Tony Stark from the past, who actually almost dies fighting against his older self. In the end, however, Tony has a change of heart, and he basically sacrifices himself to save his friends and the world from Kang. However, as I said, this version of him would later be resurrected and then amalgamated with the younger Tony, who remained in 616 in his place. Together, they would give us the Tony Stark that we know and love today in the comics.
Number 8, Exiles. Tony Stark, the undisputed monarch of Earth, What? Take a man with the intelligence, wealth, and power of Anthony Stark and make him unbothered by any kind of sense of morality. That's a man who can bring the world to its knees, but has the sense to not let them know it, and then be begged to take charge. Tony Stark of Earth 42777 acquired every world conglomerate. He organized a mutant war against humanity and then defeated their leader, Magneto, created a worldwide famine, the likes of which was never seen before, and then invented the cures and vaccines to fix it, and then he got elected president. He developed weather controlling technologies to create biblical level natural disasters in Europe and Asia, having them beg for help to the point of giving up control. Central America and Canada had economic down spirals that brought them into the fold too, and he made a deal with Dr. Doom, who had attacked the Capitol and then taken out all the other democratic leaders in America, who he also destroyed after receiving a blast to the face that left him disfigured just like Emperor Palpatine. He's D-Life the Hulk. This version of Tony Stark is ruthless and powerful.
Number 7. Superior Iron Man. Superior Iron Man is actually a version of Tony from the main continuity, but he's so devious and fantastic that I had to include him. What can I say? I'm obviously a sucker for an evil villain version of Tony Stark, as this is the second one that I've mentioned on this list. I just feel like Tony has so much potential as an amazing villain, and honestly, I would rather see him as a villain than a hero. I know that might be a hot take, but there it is. And you might even say he's not just an amazing villain, he's a superior villain. Ho-ho. Superior Iron Man came about as a result of Iron Man avoiding the re-reversal of alignments back to normal near the end of Axis. You see, Scarlet Witch had cast a spell which accidentally inverted the alignment of a good number of Marvel's premium heroes and villains. Well, she meant to invert them, but not all of them. She meant to invert one of them, and then everyone else got affected too. Oops. Among them was Tony. When this was reversed, so Tony would go back from being evil to good once more, the super smart Iron Man found a way to shield himself, resisting the reversal back to being a hero. Instead, he remained a villain who simply passed himself off as a hero. This version of Tony isn't just smart, he's diabolical, and his lack of ethics means he's willing to do things that his regular, more heroic 616 self wouldn't.
Number 6. Ultimate Universe. Having your mind and body altered by an Infinity Gem sounds like it could go pretty much anywhere, but fittingly for Tony Stark, it led to him being able to physically and mentally interact with pretty much any computer ever. That's a pretty good ability for someone who flies around in a technological suit of armor. The Antonio Stark of Earth 1610, or the Ultimate Universe, has basically become part man, part machine, being able to project his mind into computers and androids, allowing him to be nigh unkillable. Proven when the Master, Reed Richards, seemingly brought his demise, but he became a non-physical entity which could manifest itself via computer systems. When actually physically inhabiting an Iron Man armor, he gains the usual abilities, plus force fields and cloaking. He's also got nanites in his bloodstream that he uses to control his suits, as well as open locks, defuse boom booms, and interact with all forms of tech. This Ultimate Universe Iron Man, like quite a few of the other Ultimate Universe characters, is pretty ultimate.
Number 5. Darkhold Iron Man. As we glimpse into the Darkhold, we get to see into the much darker reality of Earth 21129 when it comes to Tony Stark's tale. Here in Darkhold Iron Man, issue number 1, we meet Tony Stark, who becomes obsessed with the armor that he's building, despite the fact that once in said pieces of armor, they cannot be removed, as they bond to Tony in such a way that removing the armor also removes his skin. In essence, we learn that the armor is kinda like feeding on Tony Stark's organic makeup, fully bonding with him. When he wears the helmet, this becomes evident when we learn that skin and bone are melting away, as the suit has, well, no need of them, because they're like, hey, we're armor, so you don't need that. This Tony Stark is eerily powerful as he threatens to take over the world with his technology, offering everyone the infinite and permanent safety of his suits, at the cost of their own organic lives and bodies.
Number 4. Iron Goblin. Earth 19919, or the Spider Island, basically saw the city of New York taken over by the Spider Queen, who infected millions of people, including heroes, turning them into monstrous spider people. Agent Venom of the Resistance began using other monster transforming techniques. This includes injecting the Hulk with the Lizard Serum, using the Godstone to turn Captain America into a werewolf, and Captain Mar-Vell was turned into a living vampire. For Iron Man, he was sprayed with the Goblin formula used by Norman Osborn to save him. This gave Tony Stark super strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, and a regenerative healing factor. You know, the superhero starter starter pack of abilities, plus all the technology of the Iron Man suit. Unfortunately, the serum also has the side effect of making people maniacal, paranoid, irrational, and illogical. Not wanting to go fully insane and to make up for his crimes as an arms dealer, the Goblin Iron Man wielded the Ebony Blade, one of the most powerful weapons in the Marvel Universe, and sacrificed himself to save the Resistance.
Number 3. Iron Hammer. Iron Hammer is an amalgamation of Iron Man and Thor from the Pocket Dimension universe known as Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora gained the power of the Infinity Stones and used them to fold the universe in half, merging souls together in doing so to create amalgamated heroes and villains, then feeding those souls to the Soul Gem. Iron Hammer is Stark Odinson, the son of Howard Odin, who is part businessman, part Asgardian god. Iron Hammer wields a hammer and also wears a spiffy set of armor, having the powers of both the 616 versions of both of these heroes.
Number 2. Iron Lantern. Ah, yes, the Amalgam Universe, combining the world's two biggest comic book companies, DC and Marvel, pitting popular characters from both sides against each other and even fusing some characters together. One incredibly cool amalgamation would be between Iron Man and Green Lantern. Harold Stark, HAL for short, was the founder of Stark Aircraft, and while test flying a prototype aircraft, it suddenly took off on its own to a crashed alien spaceship, and it too crashed. The crash left shards of metal in Stark's chest, which, after meeting the dying alien Romancer, Stark survived using an alien battery, suspiciously in the shape of a lantern, to build a suit of armor. This armor not only kept him alive though, it gave him the ability to create green solid energy constructs, fire plasma bolts, fly at speeds beyond the speed of light, time travel, it granted him almost unlimited telepathic powers, translation of virtually any language, force field generation, and the ever classic superhuman strength and durability. Yeah, he'll put his hand on your chest.
Number 1. Infamous Iron Man. Who is Infamous Iron Man? Well, he's Dr. Doom as Iron Man. I know this might seem like a controversial pick for our top spot, but walk with me, or I guess just stand with me, because I can't really walk anywhere. Dr. Doom, despite being a villain, is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. He's not only a genius, but is the ruler of a nation known as Latveria, wielding all the power of his country, his people, and the nation's resources, as well as being an extremely gifted magic user. In fact, there are even futures where Doom becomes Sorcerer Supreme, and if it weren't for Clea showing up in the 616 universe, he would have become Sorcerer Supreme after Doctor Strange died. Also, a lot of what stops Dr. Doom from winning the day is his role as a heel for the heroes, a villain. So when he decided to take up the mantle of Iron Man in Tony's absence, he became pretty much unstoppable, because now there's no reason for him to technically have to lose battles. He's not a bad guy. Well, he's kind of a bad guy, but he's a good bad guy. Villains even banded together in fear of what action Doom might take against them as Iron Man. And when they did band together, he still showed up and then beat them all. So yeah. Number 10. Mind Spinner. Mind Spinner is one of the clones of Miles Morales, because guess what? He got his own clone saga. That is right. And Mind Spinner is one of his own clones. I don't know if we needed a Miles Morales clone saga, but I gotta say, I did really like the clones we were introduced to through it. Mind Spinner is different from Miles in that he has a physical mutation. He has real spider legs coming out of his back, which can at times give him a leg up in combat. See what I did there? Mind Spinner is also a psionic, so when you are fighting him, it's not just your body you need to be worried about, but also your mind, as he is able to attack his opponents telepathically as well. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This version of Spider-Man is only ranking lower because he's much newer when it comes to the world of heroics. He is just coming into his own and learning of his power set and how best to use and control it. I mean, in the first animated film Into the Spider-Verse, Miles as a new Spider-Man is still struggling to stick to surfaces, crawl around, and safely unstick, and he can't quite get a hold of his camouflage abilities either just yet. But hey, he's new. He's definitely trying. I love this version of Miles, and I personally cannot wait to see him come more into his own and become even more powerful in the next film, Across the Spider-Verse. Number 8. Ultimate Spider-Ham. That's right, Peter Parker isn't the only one with an alternate Spider-Ham persona, if you can believe that. Miles also has his own version. Sometimes referred to as Ultimate Spider-Ham, this more realistic version of Spider-Ham, an alternate of both Peter Parker of Earth-8311 and Miles Morales of Earth-1610. 1610 goes by the name of Miles Morhaimes. In his home reality, Miles follows in the footsteps of the original Spider-Ham, Peter Porker, of Earth 14094, as this is the reality where Miles hails from. After his reality was destroyed, Ultimate Spider-Ham became one of its only known survivors, and he traversed the multiverse, warning other worlds of their coming doom. He learned on his travels that there was one constant when it came to ensuring a reality's safety, it seemed: the existence of a child born of Sue Storm and Reed Richards. However, in the 1610 reality which he came to, it seemed that Sue Storm and Ben Grimm's child was the one who was destined instead to fill this role. Thank goodness, because I know Sue did not want to be with Reed in that reality. This version of Miles shares the Earth 1610 power set, but is a humanoid pig. So yeah. Number 7. Selim. Selim is an evil clone of Miles Morales. Selim or Selim, however you want to say that. He believed he was created to be superior to the original Miles Morales, and this belief and his rapidly approaching end seemingly corrupted his mind. Selim, like the other clones of Miles, was unstable and as such began to rapidly age. Selim's name is Miles spelled backwards, but despite being his clone, he did not seem to possess all of his powers. However, he was an extremely skilled combatant, likely even more deadly than Miles. Of course, Miles doesn't usually aim to kill, so keep that in mind. Selim possessed Miles' Venom Blast, using it to electrocute his enemies, often to death. Also, in many other skill sets, Selim felt he was actually superior to Miles, even suggesting that he spoke better Spanish than the original 1610 Miles Morales. Number 6. Shift. Shift is another clone of Miles, but unlike Selim, he is still alive. Selim and Miles faced off in a final showdown, but after Shift switched sides, Selim, ultimately feeling betrayed, took out both himself and the other Miles clone Mind Spinner, destroying them both with a giant Venom Blast. Shift's powers, while less intuitively destructive, are definitely cooler than Selim's. He has shapeshifting abilities which he can use to bolster his own strength and durability, even appearing resistant to Venom Blasts. He also possesses a spider sense and is extremely agile. Despite being unable to speak due to a flaw in his cloning process, he still possesses a gifted mind, so don't let the fact that he's a man of few words fool you. Unlike Selim, Shift became a stable clone, possibly due to Miles' baby sister, Billy, sneezing on Shift after he helped to rescue her from Selim. The theory is that this causes Shift somehow to produce antibodies, which I guess helps to stabilize his cells. Kind of a weird explanation, but I'm gonna roll with it because I like Shift. Number 5. Ultimatum. Ultimatum is considered a big threat to the main continuity Miles of Earth 1610. Ultimatum, though to some may be considered the main reality version of the character, oddly enough. He hails from Earth 616, widely considered to be the main continuity. However, Miles got displaced to Earth 616 as a reward after giving Molecule Man something to eat during the events of Secret Wars. Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe at the time, was no longer a thing, and so Owen Reese basically gave Miles and his family a new life and a second chance in the Earth 616 continuity. Ultimatum, however, was originally from Earth 616, but for a time himself moved to Earth 1610, having life there. When Earth 1610 Miles showed up on Earth 616, however, Earth 616 Miles, who goes by the villainous name of Ultimatum, decided it would be best if Spider-Man relocate, and attempted to send him and his family back to the now resurrected Ultimate Universe. Needless to say, Miles did not like that very much. 1610 Miles. Ooh, it's confusing. Number 4. Insomniac's Miles Morales. Insomniac's Miles Morales is the version that hails from the PlayStation and now PC game Spider-Man Miles Morales. This version of Miles is still figuring out how to be a hero, but finds himself superpowered after being bitten by an experimental Oscorp spider. Miles, in his own short sequel, is tasked with looking after New York in Peter's absence. Like his comic book counterpart, he has the proportional strength, speed, and agility of a spider, but also possesses camouflage abilities and his Venom Blast as well. Miles is also something of an aspiring scientist himself. Like Peter, he also possesses a genius-level intellect. Number 3. Mayor Miles Morales. Mayor Miles Morales hails from the alternate future of Earth 13153, as seen in Miles Morales: The End. In this reality, a group of monsters known as the Germs attacked and destroyed most of Earth. Brooklyn ends up being one of the last safe havens for humanity, where many people have fled to. Miles ends up revealing his secret identity in this reality to some of Earth's last survivors, and ends up becoming the mayor of New York, hence why we call him Mayor Miles Morales, or Mayor Morales if you will. As a result, he works hard to fight against the germs and keep the people of Brooklyn safe. In the end, this older, more experienced version of Miles chooses to sacrifice his life in the fight to protect his people. He ends up dying while also taking out the threat of Captain Last, a villain who models himself after Captain America and ends up merged with the germ in the end. Number 2. Earth 8. This is an alternate future to that of Earth 65. In this reality, Miles Morales ends up married to Spider-Gwen. The two go on to become members of the Amazing Eight, their world's premier superhero team. They have 2 children together who also join the team, and also both Miles and Gwen are known as celebrities the world over in this reality. It's apparently a paradise-like reality where the world's own Watcher is constantly worried about the Watcher of Earth 65, as damage done to that world would obviously cause Earth 8 to cease to exist. While we don't know too much about the power levels of this Earth's Miles Morales, we can't imagine both he and Gwen are powerful enough and have a good enough handle on the world with their superhero team that they can pretty much just up and take a second honeymoon without much worry. So I think that's saying something. Number 1. Hulk. Miles Morales becomes the Hulk in issue number 3 of his own What If series. In this series, we see alternate versions of him becoming different heroes other than Spider-Man, and in this issue, one of those alternate heroes is of course none other than the Hulk. Here we learn that in this alternate world, Miles became the Hulk thanks to his uncle Aaron. His uncle was holding on to nuclear materials used to build a bomb. Well, he was holding on to sort of the energy source for that. It was only a part of the bomb. And when Miles swatted at a spider near the briefcase that was contained in, it resulted in one of the capsules kind of exploding. He was transformed into the Hulk, and from that day would struggle with his own inner demons and rage, and also deal with, becoming a Hulk every now and then. Eventually, he came to blows with this Earth's Abomination, who was actually responsible likely for his own transformation as well as for killing his uncle, which Miles felt very complex feelings about that whole thing. And here, Miles' Hulk was strong enough to, 1, end Abomination, which is pretty spooky, and brave enough to confront and accept his anger as well as forgive his deceased Uncle Aaron. Hulk really is the strongest there is. Even Miles' Hulk. It's like strong on a lot of levels. I love how Miles has his own long list of alternates. I just think that's so cool. It just goes to show you he truly is just Spider-Man.
Number 10. Beat. If you've been watching the videos I've been doing recently, then you've seen me talk about Warp World more than a few times. It's the world that formed when Gamora merged each soul in the universe with another and trapped its inhabitants in the Soul Stone. For Star-Lord, he amalgamated with both Groot and possibly Rocket Raccoon to form Pete. I can honestly say that he kind of freaks me out a little bit. I don't know why, just kind of does. But considering Peter Quill is really just a regular dude, any kind of extra abilities he acquires makes him more powerful, and I'd say being part tree is a great one. He looks like Groot, has rocket boots, and he's got Rocket Raccoon inside of him. Oh, and while at first he only says, "We are Pete," he can actually talk. Maybe not a power we want, but still. Number 9. T'Challa. In the MCU's animated What If series, we get a really awesome Star-Lord. Not Peter Quill. No. In this alternate timeline, the Ravagers think they were hired to collect the Wakandan prince T'Challa. T'Challa taught the Ravagers to change their lifestyles, and he became an admirable intergalactic icon where he took the name Star-Lord. This Star-Lord was a hero of the galaxy. He convinced Thanos to take a different path than the one he was going down, convincing him to join the Ravagers. T'Challa went to Morag, where he got the orb from the temple where he confronted Korath and Sarkarians, who wanted the orb on Ronan's orders, and they were easily defeated by Star-Lord. He learned of the Embers of Genesis and made it his mission to acquire the Embers in order to terraform worlds to solve the issue of starvation and resources running dry, and he was successful in getting it from the Collector. T'Challa and the Ravagers found out about Ego's arrival on Earth and that he went to claim his son Peter Quill. Ego began his expansion, but T'Challa stopped him and took Quill away. T'Challa was even recruited to the Guardians of the Multiverse by Uatu the Watcher. His accomplishments are many, and all are impressive. Number 8. Kitty Pryde. In the Earth 616 reality, Peter Quill stepped away from his role of Star-Lord to become Emperor of the Spartax Empire, the empire of his father and the reason for him being near immortal and superhuman and all that. When he did, Kitty Pryde, who if you don't know had a bit of a thing with Peter, took over the role in his place. Her mutant powers obviously put her a cut above a half Spartax and instantly made her one of the most powerful versions of a Star-Lord. That's not to mention her intelligence and skill as an engineer plus her mutant buddies also make her uniquely gifted. Kitty Pryde is already a pretty powerful mutant in Marvel Comics, but when she's with the Guardians of the Galaxy, she even becomes cosmically powerful thanks to the Black Vortex. I wonder if we will ever see this happen in the MCU. It would take a lot to figure out, but I think Kitty Pryde would at least have the intelligence and self-control not to punch Thanos while he is being telepathically subdued. Number 7. Lord Starkill. Everybody loves pirates. Well, not real pirates, they're kind of the worst, but like fictional pirates. Those guys are cool. Usually. In the reality of Earth 25271, Peter Quill has become Lord Starkill, a wanted space pirate and leader of the Ravagers. His greatest nemesis was the leader of the Zeta Flight pirates, Carol Danvers. He is hired by the great wise peacekeeper Thanos, the Just, to find the Reality Stone and bring it to Thanos so he can finally rid the universe of criminals. Instead of elemental blasters, Starkill wielded a elemental rifle, but he was generally very similar to the normal Peter Quill, except seemingly much more successful. Also, Groot is now Root, and he's a carrot. Starkill ends up capturing the galaxy-displaced Carol Danvers before both their crews mutiny on them. It's a wild ride and it's very funny, but it has enough cool moments. This Star-Lord has his hands on the Reality Stone, which should make him more powerful, but he barely used it properly, and for that I shame him to the 7th spot. Number 6. Old Man Quill. In the world of Old Man Logan, all the supervillains teamed up and took out huge groups of heroes, leaving America as a wasteland. But before that ever happened, Peter Quill left Earth and his Guardians of the Galaxy to take over his father's place as Emperor of Spartax, ruling for many years. So that's 1 point for power. Except, eventually his people were kind of destroyed. Also, the Guardians of the Galaxy passed away too, with Peter unable to save them. So yeah, he has some faults, but it's his shame that drives him to come back to Earth and try to do things right. What is kind of interesting is that he imagines the Guardians all alive in his head, and it actually allows him to be quite capable. He imagines Gamora, Drax, and Rocket all doing things that in reality was actually just him, including hacking a drone to free Fing Fang Foom in a coliseum, defeating Pulsar, and the Madrox gang. In the climax of the story, the Universal Church of Truth, the ones who helped destroy his planet and the Guardians of the Galaxy, come to find him on Earth, and he dons the Hulkbuster armor to take them on. He defeats Astra, Fang, Manta, Gladiator, Titan, Warbird, and Warstar all by himself with the Hulkbuster. So yeah, he is more than capable. Number 5. Nova. Star-Lord as a Nova kinda just makes sense. I mean, also not at all because it's Star-Lord. But he is definitely more of a hero than not. Okay, so Infinity Gauntlet was a 2015 story set in one of the realms of Battleworld. The story follows the family of a Nova who deputizes them, creating a family of Novas, including their dog. This family of Novas are collecting the Infinity Stones to try and hold back the annihilation wave that was unleashed by their ally, Thanos. Although they don't know that. Okay. But we're here for Star-Lord, I hear you say. Well, this Star-Lord and his partner Gamora are thieves, and they come into contact with the Space Stone, and they sell it to the Bakian Nova family in exchange for 3 Nova stars. Star-Lord and Gamora end up allying themselves with the Bakian clan as well. Now, you fast forward to the climax of the story, and Thanos has betrayed the Novas, obviously, and has unleashed a behemoth bug. Star-Lord, Gamora, and the newly discovered Groot take on this behemoth, using the 3 Nova stars to give them a significant power boost to do so. They definitely did not survive the behemoth as it released a massive energy blast, but for a short while, Peter Quill had the power of a Nova. And that's good. Number 4. Major Victory. In the 100th anniversary special, Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill has faked his death, and Gamora took over his place as Star-Lord. She isn't who this point is about, but because I like you all so much, I'll give you 2 Star-Lords in one. While Gamora is Star-Lord and killing it, meanwhile Quill, in order to gain the trust of Silver Galactus, had impersonated Major Victory and took his place among the Heralds of Galactus, seemingly with all the power that comes with. He fought against his former teammates on the side of Silver Galactus, fooling literally everyone into thinking he genuinely was the Herald, until Galactus had fully plugged himself into nowhere, which allowed Quill to finally disable Silver Galactus and unmask himself, showing everyone he was actually Quill. What a guy. Number 3. Classic Star-Lord. Not everyone may know this, but when Star-Lord first appeared in comics, he was not what you may expect. For starters, his backstory was pretty different. He was still half alien, half Spartan to be exact, but after his mother was killed by aliens, it prompted Quill to run away and eventually become a NASA astronaut, successfully this time, which led to him being offered the role of Star-Lord, an intergalactic police officer while aboard the International Space Station. The one who offered Quill this role, the alien entity called the Master of the Sun, bestowed abilities upon Star-Lord that included faster than light flight, self-sustenance, a personal energy force field, telepathic resistance, and an instinctive understanding of alien machinery without even having to make contact with it. His suit augmented his strength and durability and gave him the ability to travel through space, but he also had a sentient spaceship that he can telepathically link with, just in case. All of that alongside the peak human attributes he has thanks to being half Spartan. Number 2. Realm Mar-Vell Star-Lord. The Star-Lord of Earth 9997 would be one of the superhumans who would become a member of a group formed by the now deceased Mar-Vell of the Kree called the Realm Mar-Vell, alongside Richard Rider and Carol Danvers. Now the Star-Lord we all know from the MCU and the Guardians of the Galaxy comics isn't on par with these two. But the classic Peter, I mean if you were paying attention literally like a minute ago, he is much closer to that level of power. And judging from his outfit and look, that is the Star-Lord who is chosen as a member of the Realm Mar-Vell. The members of this Realm Mar-Vell traveled into the negative zone and cast their souls into the realm of the dead, but they did it in a way that their souls were not in forfeit, allowing them to help Mar-Vell in gathering souls of past heroes and villains to join the ranks of Mar-Vell's army of the dead. Number 1. Master of the Sun. One of, if not the most powerful variants of Star-Lord, is the one where he becomes one of the most powerful cosmic beings in the Marvel Universe. For a really short time, Star-Lord became the Master of the Sun, you know, the guy that gave classic Star-Lord his powers. As the Master of the Sun, Peter had the power of cosmic awareness and the ability to manipulate matter and energy. If you know anything about power hierarchy in Marvel Comics, you know that's an insane level of power to wield. He could channel cosmic energy through his element gun, making the weapon insanely powerful. He was also immune to telepathic influence or perception while in this form, making him imperceptible to mind readers. Truly the most powerful Star-Lord variation. Coming in at number 10, 1602. In this alternate Earth, or alternate timeline, Magneto is known as Enrique or the Grand Inquisitor. He was born Jewish in a Venice ghetto, but was taken in by a Christian priest and baptized. The Christians later refused to let him be returned to his Jewish family, and being unable to be reunited with this family left him psychologically scarred, which I guess led him directly to become the leader of the Spanish Inquisition somehow? He was ordered to execute the witch breed, or mutants to us in the modern age, but he hid those who could pass off as human. Enrique's only known followers are his children Petros and sister Wanda, who are Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch in case you didn't make the connection. And his spy in the Vatican is the Toad. Enrique uses his position to further his needs and curry favor with the influential figures including King James of Scotland. While Enrique is attempting to have Angel killed, the Witchbreed is rescued by Iceman and Cyclops. If you guys haven't read 1602, definitely do. It's written by frickin' Neil Gaiman. Like, come on. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you drop a like. It really helps us out as a channel and we would really appreciate it. It's on to number 9 with Age of Apocalypse Magneto. In the reality of Age of Apocalypse, Magneto leads this world's X-Men after the death of his friend Charles Xavier, at the hands of Xavier's son David, who traveled back in time hoping to kill Magneto. Magneto and the X-Men fight against the forces of this world's Apocalypse, who, without the interference of Xavier, was able to take over North America. Magneto's team is composed not only of the X-Men but also includes mutants like Sabretooth and other not so good guys. In this timeline, Magneto is married to the mutant Rogue and together they have a son they named Charles. Magneto and this Charles are later personally captured by Apocalypse himself, though they are rescued by Rogue and the other X-Men, including Nate Gray, who raid Apocalypse's citadel in a desperate final attempt to save all of reality from Macron crystallization. The end fight between Apocalypse and Magneto in this story is so awesome, and Magneto like literally tears the celestial technology out of him. It's just super cool. Number 8, Magneto. On Earth 982, the Age of Heroes happened about 15 years earlier than on Earth 616, meaning most of the events, history, and character history associated with the heroes of Earth 616 also happened 15 years before. As such, a lot of the superheroes of the past, the ones you and I know, have either grown up up, grown old, or retired, with new heroes in their place. For Magneto, he doesn't actually show up. Instead, we have a young woman who goes by the name Magneta, and who seems to have all the same powers as Magneto, even dressing similar to him as she considers him her predecessor. She started off as a hero and always spouted the heroic ideologies that Magneto followed, condemning his more negative aspects. But that didn't really seem to matter though, as she eventually went bad anyways and founded the Sisterhood of Mutants as a strike team for mutants against human oppression. Her efforts to recruit a Midtown high school student named Nucleus brought her into conflict with Spider-Girl and the X-People. Number 7. Max Eisenhardt of Earth-8013. In this reality, where Charles Xavier had died in his first encounter with Lucifer, Magneto formed his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants using his children Pietro and Wanda alongside Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, and Beast, who curiously wielded gauntlets that made him some very Wolverine-like claws for some reason, I don't know. These 5 youths were the original X-Men on Earth 616, which makes it really interesting to see them in this strange Magneto-led bad guy team. Together, they actually ended up successfully conquering the world. But then again, they were unable to prevent Galactus from in turn destroying that world, so... But hey, you win some, you lose some, you know? I don't know. Number 6. What if Magneto ruled all mutants? In this what if story from 1996, Magneto leads mutant kind as they float above Earth in space on a sanctuary Magneto established called Avalon. Magneto had decided to let his mutants rule themselves so that he wouldn't be a dictator to them. Unfortunately, a large group of mutants had divided themselves into 2 warring factions known as the Isolationists, who wanted to move Avalon to another star system, and the Annihilates, who wanted to go the easier route of destroying humanity and just taking the Earth for themselves. Magneto had to stop the 2 factions from fighting when they nearly destroyed Avalon. Later, after the birth of the first child on Avalon, Magneto actually manipulated events in order to unite the 2 warring factions together, but on the outside he acted as though he was done trying to get them to work together. What If number 85 from 1996 is certainly an interesting story, and you should definitely check it out. Number 5. Age of X. Max Eisenhardt from Earth 11326 proved to be a master strategist and a radical leader in a fight against the human race. He was a key figure in organizing resistance movements, protests, and he was the leader of both the Brotherhood and the Acolytes. He also supplied the Mutant Liberation Front with intel and logistical support. Now, similar to his Ultimate Universe counterpart, he once attempted to reverse the Earth's magnetic poles, and he would have succeeded if it hadn't been for Tony Stark and Reed Richards, who created technology that thwarted his plans and prevented any further attempts. One of his biggest feats though would be the creation of Fortress X. Magneto, using his powers, literally stole several skyscrapers from New York City and put them together to create a mutant safe haven. It was both a show of force and a mutant rallying cry. Now, after the incursions, this version of Magneto would actually go on to play a key role in the Battle World Red Skull Volume 2 storyline. Definitely a good read there, check it out. Number 4. Heroes Reborn. Heroes Reborn Magneto and the Mutant Force Volume 1 on Earth TRN 852 gives us a version of Magneto who set up yet another mutant sanctuary in the form of Island M, and founded and led a team known as the Mutant Force, consisting of Frenzy, Jubilee, Rogue, Sabra, Mr. 1, and Mr. 2, including himself. During a mutant protest against mutant registration, a fight broke out with the Squadron Supreme of America, who are like a Marvel's Comics Justice League, if that makes sense. During the fight, Power Princess, who was basically Wonder Woman, killed Professor X and paralyzed Magneto after hitting him in the spine. Magneto, affected by the passing of Xavier, and who kind of took on his whole wheelchair thing, vowed to aid mutants against human oppression. This Magneto variation actually gets his body taken over by Cassandra Nova in a crazy twist of events, and honestly, the whole story is a wild ride from start to finish. Number 3. Ultimate Universe. Everything in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, or Earth 1610, is more extreme for better or for worse. While some fans hate this version of Magneto for being a straight up villain and not the anti-hero the character has become, it is almost impossible to deny that he does show just what Magneto is totally capable of. This version of Magneto is significantly darker and more cynical than the mainstream version, regarding all humans with utter and unwavering disdain and likening them to insects. On several occasions, he has attempted to carry out extreme genocidal plans for the human population using the noticeably larger Brotherhood of Mutants he is in control of. This Magneto has displayed enough power to defeat the Ultimates, including Thor, a literal god, twice. And he was even successfully able to reverse the magnetic poles of the Earth, resulting in the Ultimatum event that was supposed to end the Ultimate Universe, but didn't for some reason, I don't know. Number 2, Brother Mutant. If you are a comic book fan, which I hope you are considering you've made it this far in the video, I highly encourage you to check out the Exiles team if you haven't already. They are a reality hopping team of heroes and sometimes villains that go around trying to fix fractured realities. One such reality that multiple teams of specifically alternate versions of Wolverine have been trying to save would be Earth 127. This reality was one of the many that was accidentally fractured by the explorations of the Timebreakers, and has a few gender-swapped characters including Magneto and his children. On this world, the Scarlet Warlock attempted to transfer the adamantium skeleton of 127's Wolverine into his mother, Magneto. But the Warlock's hex powers inadvertently merged himself, his mother Magneto, his sister Quicksilver, and the mutant Mesmero with Wolverine, creating an entirely new and extremely powerful entity known as Brother Mutant, who sought to take over the world. And in at number 1 is Magneto from House of M. When the forces of Professor X, the Avengers, and the X-Men arrived to defeat or defend the Scarlet Witch, due to her unstable mind and powers, and the influence of her brother, she caused a white flash to go off and used her powers to change reality. Mutants were no longer the minority, free to use their powers, living as proud mutants. All the mutant heroes were now living their perfect lives. Most of the societal changes in this alternate timeline were directly thanks to the strong and successful leadership of the House of Magnus, meaning Magneto and his children. Magneto took the fight to the USA with his fellow mutants. He brought down the SHIELD helicarrier and fought a final battle against the Sentinels in Central Park, defeating them. The President of the United States was captured, and Magneto and Genosha were now the world's premier superpower, with large parts of the world under his control as king. King Eric Magnus was the most powerful individual in the world, if we don't consider the Scarlet Witch, who literally created it all. Instead of mutant oppression, humans were now being oppressed and hunted by alternate versions of Sentinels. Heroes like Luke Cage, Hawkeye, and more tried to rise up and defend the defenseless as a group called the Human Resistance Movement.
Number 10. Goose Rider. Coming from the same animal-themed alternate universe as Spider-Ham, little is known about this variant of Ghost Rider other than the fact that he is a goose. This may not seem very powerful to some of you, but anyone who has ever dealt with a Canada goose knows how truly dangerous, despicable, and vengeful they can be. The idea of one of these awful creatures also being granted the powers of Ghost Rider is a truly terrifying thing to contemplate, and worth at least the number 10 spot on this list. Number 9. Ghost Rider 2099. The Ghost Rider of the year 2099 is actually the only entry on this list that doesn't get their powers from any demonic source. Zero Cochrane is instead a young computer hacker who was murdered by a rival street gang while out on a hacking mission. In an origin story not dissimilar to Chucky from Child's Play, Zero managed to download his mind into the internet before dying. He was greeted by a group of digital beings who sent him back in a robot body. Realizing that the robo body resembled the original Ghost Rider, Zero decided to take on the identity despite not technically being a Ghost Rider. Zero's power grid in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe actually lists his abilities as being much higher than many of the other Ghost Riders on this list, but as they are not a true Ghost Rider, I have decided to rank him pretty low. Number 8. Ghost Spider. A Peter Parker from an alternate dimension who travels the multiverse with the help of his Uncle Ben, stealing the powers of other Spider-Men in order to better defend his universe. The Amazing Spider, as he called himself, eventually kidnapped the Spider-Man of Earth 616 and brought him to his universe. When Spidey learned of his misguided alternate's plan, he managed to convince him that what he was doing was wrong. Although evil Uncle Ben tried to kill the mainstream Spider-Man, the Spider gave up his life to save the Peter of Earth 616. The Spider was brought back to life by his universe's Doctor Strange and turned into Ghost Spider. We have yet to see this version of Ghost Rider in action, but the mere idea of Spider-Man being granted the demonic powers of the Ghost Rider in addition to his spider powers sounds like a total powerhouse. Unfortunately, the lack of follow-up leaves him in the number 8 slot. Number 7. Danny Ketch. While visiting Houdini's grave, Danny Ketch and his sister were caught in the crossfire of a gang war. While hiding with his injured sister, Danny came across a motorbike with a glowing gas cap. The gas cap turned out to be a mystical amulet, which transformed him into Ghost Rider. In addition to the usual Ghost Rider powers, Danny is also able to transform into a spirit of corruption, giving him an armored appearance and giving him the ability to fight the spirits of vengeance. While he is a beloved incarnation of the character, there are other versions who are more powerful, even if they aren't as interesting of a character, which is why Danny is relatively low on the ranking. Number 6. Caleb. A Civil War era black man, Caleb was able to purchase his and his family's freedom and set up a life for himself on a farm. Aided by his friend Travis, a former Confederate soldier who Caleb had saved the life of, he was able to set up a pretty good life for himself. Unfortunately, a gang led by a man named George Regan killed Caleb and his family in a racist attack. Caleb was brought back as a Ghost Rider and teamed up with Travis to hunt down the men who had destroyed his family and get his revenge. Because of the personal nature of his mission, Caleb has a determination that makes him truly terrifying to behold. He has all of the standard Ghost Rider powers, such as the flaming skull and the penance stare, but he has also displayed powers that none of the other Ghost Riders have shown to be capable of. These include the power to travel between dimensions with the use of his Hellfire, and the ability to possess and control the corpses of his victims. Number 5. Johnny Blaze. Johnny Blaze is a motorcycle stuntman who, in an effort to save his surrogate father, Crash Simpson, from dying of cancer, made a deal with the demon Mephisto. Mephisto promised to cure Crash's cancer in exchange for Johnny's service. Unfortunately, Crash perished in a stunt gone wrong almost immediately afterwards, and Johnny became the Ghost Rider. Although he has tried to rid himself of this curse many times over the years, Johnny has used his powers to punish evildoers and do a lot of good, despite the evil inside wrestling for control. He is the most well-known Ghost Rider, possessing all of the iconic powers that come with the title. As he is the original Ghost Rider, other than Carter Slade, a hero with the same name but different powers, he is the barometer to which we are comparing all the other Ghost Riders and their powers, placing him at the middle of this list. Number 4. Alejandra Jones. When Johnny Blaze gave up the Ghost Rider curse, the spirit of vengeance transferred to Alejandra Jones. Jones had trained her entire life for the opportunity to become a Ghost Rider so that she could punish the sins of humanity. Because of this training, she was able to be an extremely powerful Ghost Rider, although she lost a huge amount of this power when Johnny Blaze reclaimed the Ghost Rider identity. For the time she had it, she was incredibly strong. She had the power within her to be transformed into a kind of bomb who wiped out all of the sins of everyone in Nicaragua. Number 3. Cosmic Ghost Rider. The Ghost Rider of an alternate dimension where Thanos killed everyone on Earth. This rider made a deal with Mephisto so that he could seek out and destroy Thanos. Riding his space motorcycle, the rider teamed up with Galactus to hunt down the Mad Titan. When that failed, he went back in time in an attempt to kill Thanos as a baby. He instead raised the baby Thanos, somehow managing to make him even worse. He traveled the cosmos, punishing evildoers, becoming the first Ghost Rider to take their mission to an intergalactic level. But who was this version of Ghost Rider? What makes him so determined, ruthless, and vengeful? The answer? He's Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. You don't get much more dangerous than the powers of the Ghost Rider paired with the abilities and psychosis of the Punisher. Number 2. Robbie Reyes. Robbie Reyes was a street racer charged with taking care of his little brother Gabe, until one night he was killed in a carjacking gone wrong. Thankfully for him, his car was haunted by the ghost of his sadistic uncle Eli, who revived him and transformed him into Ghost Rider. Robbie now spends his time fighting evil, trying to be a good role model for his brother, and battling the spirit of his uncle in order to try and prevent himself from becoming a force for destruction. He has comparable power levels to other Ghost Riders in most areas, but ability to teleport pushes his stats up considerably, moving him near to the top. Number 1. Red Hulk. On a list that's focused purely on power levels, it's hard to imagine a more powerful combination than the one that occurred in the Secret of Thor storyline. When Mephisto's son, Blackheart, enacted an evil plan to literally bring hell to Earth, the Alejandra Jones Ghost Rider, X-23, Agent Venom, and the Red Hulk were there to take him on. When this wasn't enough, the team decided that the best course of action would be to bond the Spirit of Vengeance and the Venom symbiote to the Red Hulk. This led to a creature with the combined powers of Ghost Rider, Venom, and Red Hulk, taking on and beating Blackheart in perhaps the most over-the-top action display Marvel has seen in years.
Number 10. Mar-Vell. In the alternate universe of Earth 1610, or the Ultimate Universe, Mar-Vell was instead known as Mar-Vell. Now, just like the original, he was a Kree Empire agent placed on Earth, but working with S.H.I.E.L.D., and he had an incredibly cool costume that he could switch in and out of using the power to switch back and forth between Kree and human forms thanks to advanced cybernetics. He shares the same powers with most Captain Marvel versions, including the ability to generate energy blasts and shields, but that awesome Kree battlesuit also lets him generate a total cannon, which is a powerful energy weapon he would use when he helped Earth fight Galactus, which is the way less cool version of Galactus. Unfortunately, he passed away from that fight though. Number 9. Amalgam Universe. Way back in the day, the Fawcett Comics creation of Captain Marvel fell into the ownership of DC after several legal battles in the 1950s, resulting in the character of Shazam. However, after the copyright lapsed, Marvel pounced on it by introducing their own Captain Marvel in 1967, which resulted in Mar-Vell of the Kree. Now, fast forward a little bit, and in a fun little moment during the awesome Amalgam comics that saw the two companies cross over, we got William Mar-Vell, or Billy Mar-Vell, if you prefer. This was basically Billy Batson, Shazam, mixed with Mar-Vell of the Kree, Captain Marvel. This hero is not only cosmically powered, but has powers originating in magic as well. It's truly a powerhouse combo. Unfortunately, we will probably never see it again. Number 8. Rogue. Infinity Countdown Captain Marvel #1 takes Carol Danvers across the multiverse, where she meets a powerful Captain Marvel variant in Anna Marie, or Rogue. In the main Marvel universe, the mutant Rogue has used her abilities to steal those of Carol Danvers before, leaving Carol depowered. These two characters actually have like a bit of an interesting relationship. They kind of practically hate each other for a time, but then they kind of get along later on. It's kind of weird. But in this alternate universe, when Rogue got Carol's powers, it actually altered her DNA, kind of swapping the two of these characters. So now, Rogue permanently has Captain Marvel's powers, plus her actual mutant abilities to gain more powers from others. It's kind of cool, but we barely see much of it. Number 7. Kamala Khan. In the Cosmic Ghost Rider series from 2018, on Earth 18138, Kamala Khan is not only part of the multiversal Guardians of the Galaxy, not only does she wield an adamantium star-spangled shield, she is no longer Miss Marvel. No, this Kamala Khan has become Captain Marvel, and one of the most powerful characters to carry that name. It's honestly just Kamala, but in the future, all grown up with an added shield. Unfortunately, while she has got to be incredibly powerful, just evident by the fact of who she is and the power she wields, plus whatever made her worthy of that shield, she still ends up getting completely disintegrated by Galactus. Doesn't really last all that long. Sorry. Number 6. Binary. Is this kind of cheating? Technically, Binary is Carol Danvers, but this was after Rogue stole her powers and Carol had been fighting with the X-Men for a while. Eventually, while with the X-Men, the Brood captured her and a few others and experimented on them. For Carol, this increased her ability to generate cosmic energies, which was already incredibly powerful, by basically giving her the power of a white hole. Kind of like a black hole, but white. She became extremely confident, and it's arguably one of her most powerful forms. Now, Binary sort of became a separate person when Carol Danvers duplicated herself, so in that regard, Binary is an alternate Captain Marvel, kind of. Really? Not, no, I mean, kind of. Number 4. Noh-Varr. Created by Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones, Noh-Varr is a Kree from an alternate reality of Earth 200080, and I'm just gonna say, he's kind of weird. Why? Well, because this particular Kree had his DNA altered with the genes of a cockroach. And they also gave him nanobiology, which is a side thing. This gives him a whole bunch of special attributes. He has superhuman strength, stamina, agility, and a top speed of 150 miles per hour. He is triple jointed, can reroute pain, has hallucinogenic saliva, technopathy, he has mental control over his body, can wall crawl, has super hearing, and can reach faster than light speeds while flying. Is it insane that this even happens? Yes, but it does. Now while he is more commonly known as Marvel Boy, when he was in our 616 universe, the Skrull Captain Marvel, Kinney, I think is how you pronounce it, inspired Noh-Varr to become Captain Marvel, which he did, but as part of Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers before abandoning the team. Number 3. Age of Ultron. In this alternate universe, Ultron has taken over the world, and the superheroes have had to go underground, with most supervillains living under the orders of Ultron in exchange for living their lives more freely. What may surprise most people is that in this universe, Captain Marvel is none other than the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. So this comes about when Wolverine, trying to prevent Ultron's creation in the beginning, goes back in time to take out the scientist Hank Pym. That creates this alternate timeline where Janet Van Dyne becomes Captain Marvel. Don't ask me how that works or why, because I don't really know. It doesn't really tell you, it just kind of happens. What I do know is that this is a really cool version of Captain Marvel that has all the cosmic powers of the character, but can shrink down just like the Wasp can. It's a surprisingly powerful combo, but unfortunately Morgana Le Fay still ends up destroying her and the rest of this universe's defenders. Number 5. Genis-Vell. So, in the 616 universe, after Mar-Vell of the Kree passed on due to cancer, his love, Elysius, uses titanium science to turn a sample of some of Mar-Vell's genetic structure into a child, Genis-Vell. To protect him from Captain Marvel's enemies, Elysius had Genis artificially aged to maturity and then took him to an isolated world called Paraxis. He would eventually leave, and learning of his father, he would take on the title of Captain Marvel. Unfortunately, a byproduct of his lineage was cosmic awareness, and the strain of not knowing who to save and who to let perish made him go insane, revive himself, conquer worlds, destroy everyone in reality, restore reality, try and declare himself a god, and overall just kind of a lot. But it eventually led to the creation of Phyla-Vell, who was arguably much better. Number 2. Lord Mar-Vell. In the Cancerverse reality of Earth 10011, Captain Marvel plotted with the many-angled ones to help him survive the cancer that eventually led to his passing in Earth 616. This granted him a whole slew of powers, which allowed him to turn his allies into messed up, corrupt, scary versions of themselves known as the Revengers. And together they captured Thanos, the Avatar of Death, and in a ritual, sacrificed him to destroy Death, which gave the many-angled ones access to this universe. Now he would go on to invade the 616 universe, which is a story you gotta check out, but for now, this Mar-Vell was able to hold off Nova, Silver Surfer, and Quasar all at the same time. He could metabolize solar energy to give him even more power, he was cosmically aware, could cast illusions, teleport, and obviously was immortal. Number 1. Universe X. In this universe, Mar-Vell of the Kree is pretty similar to his 616 counterpart, only after passing on, he found himself in the realm of the dead. It's an insane story, but essentially, Mar-Vell ends up recruiting the other dead heroes of the world in a crusade against death itself, all the while being reborn on Earth and collecting powerful artifacts and even destroying the Kree Supreme Intelligence, which bolstered his army in the realm of the dead. Eventually, he defeats both Thanos and Death herself and creates a paradise for the dead in the negative zone. But that creates a whole bunch of problems as he realizes the living can't die now, so he restores Death. It's truly insane. Marvel had the powers of eternity, meaning he basically had limitless power, but also for a time he had access to the Ultimate Nullifier, Anti-Metal, the Book of the Vishanti, the Darkhold, the Orb and Eye of Agamotto, Psycho-Man's Emotocaster, High Evolutionary's Transmogrification Device, the Silver Surfer's Power Cosmic, Kyle Richmond's Eyes, the Cosmic Consciousness, the Cloak of Cloak, and the Mandarin's Power Rings.